"I don't charge desperate people," Beatrice Johnson said firmly, looking the soaked man straight in the eye. "I do what I can to help. That's how my mother taught me." The man froze, blinking, caught off guard. I can pay $2,000, maybe even $2,500. Please, my meeting tomorrow. 300 people depend on it." Beatrice shook her head. "If you're paying out of desperation, it's not help. It's exploitation. I can't do that." The storm outside battered the windows, thunder rolling like distant artillery. But inside the small tailoring shop, only quiet determination filled the air. Her hands hovered over the jacket, ready to work, knowing the night ahead would demand all her skill. "Before we continue, I'm curious. Where are you watching this story from? Write your city in the comments. I read them all, and it's amazing to see how many people from around the world listen to these stories." Beatrice exhaled slowly, letting the moment settle. She glanced at the counter, at the stack of bills that never seemed to shrink. $310 in the bank. Rent, $950 due in 4 days. Electricity, $220 due Friday. $860 short. Her landlord's notice lay unopened. The weight pressed on her chest, but she straightened her back. Her eyes drifted to the framed newspaper clipping above the sewing machine. It showed her mother, Gloria Johnson, bending over a wedding dress, hands careful and gentle, expression focused. The caption read, "Gloria Johnson repairs a bride's gown for free, ensuring her special day goes on." Beatrice touched the glass lightly. Could she honor that legacy tonight, despite her own struggles? The man outside, shivering, stepped in and shook off water from his coat. Beatrice lit a candle, its soft glow dancing on the walls. The power flickered and died, leaving the shop in near darkness. "I've sewn in the dark before," she murmured to herself. "My hands remember what my eyes cannot see." Minutes stretched into hours. She stitched, pinned, and adjusted with precision, her mind occasionally drifting to her daughter Nia, asleep in the apartment above. College applications waited, dreams that Beatrice wanted to secure. Each movement of her hands became a quiet promise, to her mother, to her craft, and to the belief that kindness mattered more than money. The man shifted, voice hesitant. "Are you sure? $2,500, maybe more, anything. I insist." Beatrice shook her head again. "I can't take money from someone desperate. That's not help. That's taking advantage." As dawn painted the sky pale gray, she stepped back from the jacket. Every seam perfect, every line crisp. Something in the man's eyes shifted, subtle, almost hidden, but undeniable. This act of kindness had begun to change everything. The man finally spoke, breaking the tense silence. "My name is Gregory Hayes. I've never had anyone do something like this for me before." His voice was low, almost ashamed. Beatrice folded the jacket neatly and placed it on the table. "You're welcome," she said simply. She didn't ask why he needed it or where he worked. Desperation was enough for her to act. Gregory looked around the small shop, noticing the framed pictures, the old sewing machines, and the neat stacks of fabric. "This place, it's incredible. I can see why your mother was so respected. You're carrying on a legacy." Beatrice smiled faintly. "It's not about respect. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard." Gregory nodded, though he seemed troubled. "I understand. But, Beatrice, I need to ask, why are you helping me without payment? You're struggling yourself, aren't you?" She hesitated. She could have said yes, could have taken the money, but she shook her head. "Because I know what it's like to be desperate. Money doesn't fix that. It only delays the fear for a little while. I help people because they need it, not because I want a paycheck." Gregory's eyes widened. "You're extraordinary," he whispered. He seemed almost unsure whether to trust her words. Beatrice leaned against the counter. Extraordinary? No, I'm just trying to be human. That's all. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the first light of dawn touched the street. Gregory shifted nervously. I need to go. My meeting. It's in less than 3 hours. But before I leave, I need to know something. Will this jacket help me? Beatrice's fingers traced the smooth fabric. It's perfect. It's ready. You'll look the part, and sometimes that's half the battle. Gregory exhaled and nodded. Thank you. Truly. He reached into his coat pocket and paused. I wanted to give you this, he said, pulling out a thick envelope. I don't know, a thank you. $2,000. Please take it. Beatrice's heart skipped. She looked at him, calm but firm. No, she said. I don't take desperate people's money. If you need it, keep it. That's why I helped. Gregory stared for a moment, a mixture of admiration and confusion on his face. Then he smiled faintly, almost embarrassed. I've never met anyone like you. As he left, Beatrice closed the door and leaned against it. Her fingers still tingled from the stitches. Her stomach growled, a reminder of her own financial struggle. But her heart was steady. She had done the right thing. She wandered to the back of the shop, where a small desk held letters and bills. One of them was a notice from the electricity company threatening to cut power in less than 24 hours. Another was a rent notice, urgent and insistent. She pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling the weight of her reality. But then her gaze landed on a photograph of her mother, smiling warmly at a bride whose gown had been repaired without charge. Beatrice smiled faintly. I can do this too, she thought. I will do this, no matter how hard it gets. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She turned, expecting another customer, but it was a courier holding a small package. She signed quickly. Inside was a note, simple and precise. Thank you for your help. You've done more than you realize. G.H. Beatrice frowned, sensing there was more to this man than met the eye. Who was he, really? Why had he seemed so desperate? And why did helping him feel like the start of something bigger, something she couldn't yet understand? She set the note aside, looking at the jacket still folded neatly on the counter. The shop smelled faintly of rain, fabric, and candle wax. The storm outside had faded, but inside, anticipation stirred like a current beneath the calm. Her mind raced. Was this one act of kindness going to ripple further than she imagined? Could helping this stranger change more than just his mourning? Beatrice shook her head softly. She couldn't know yet, but one thing was certain. Whatever came next, she would face it with her hands steady, her heart open, and the same resolve that had guided her mother for decades. And somewhere, deep inside, she felt the first stirrings of hope. That perhaps, even in a world so often harsh and unforgiving, kindness could lead to something extraordinary. The next morning, Beatrice arrived at her shop before sunrise. The streets were quiet, the storm's aftermath leaving puddles that mirrored the pale morning sky. She unlocked the door, feeling the weight of the night's events pressing on her shoulders. She set the jacket on the counter, brushing a few stray pins aside. Then the bell above the door jingled. She looked up. 2 sharply dressed men stepped inside. Their suits were immaculate, their shoes polished. One of them cleared his throat. Beatrice Johnson? Yes, she replied, wary. Can I help you? The taller man smiled politely but firmly. We represent Gregory Hayes. We understand you helped him last night with a jacket repair. He asked us to come directly to you. Beatrice's heart raced. She had expected a thank you note, maybe a call. But this? She nodded slowly. All right. Please, have a seat. The men sat, their eyes flicking around the shop, taking in every detail. Mr. Hayes insists, the shorter one said, that we express his deepest gratitude. He's arranging something that will properly compensate you for your time and expertise. Beatrice's eyebrows rose. Compensate me? She asked, her voice cautious. I already told him I don't take desperate people's money. The taller man nodded. We understand, but Mr. Hayes has resources. He wants to ensure that your generosity is recognized in a way that benefits you, your family, and your shop. He's not asking for payment from you for your principles. He wants to give you an opportunity. Beatrice swallowed. She had never been in a situation like this. Opportunities like this weren't supposed to happen to someone like her, someone struggling to keep her lights on and her rent paid. Opportunity? She asked again, more softly. Yes, the man replied. Mr. Hayes is the CEO of Hayes Industries. He was the one you helped last night. He has arranged a meeting with you, today. He would like to discuss a partnership and a role that could change your life. Beatrice's mind spun. The man she had helped, the desperate client who had seemed ordinary and troubled, was Gregory Hayes, the billionaire founder of one of the largest companies in the country. Her breath caught in her chest. She straightened. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything now, the other man said. Mr. Hayes will explain everything in person. He admires your integrity and your dedication. He believes someone with your skill and heart belongs in a position where you can influence and help others on a larger scale. Beatrice felt a mix of disbelief, excitement, and fear. Could this really be happening? Could one act of kindness ripple into something so extraordinary? As the men left to fetch Gregory, Beatrice walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. The city was waking up slowly. The sun peeked over the rooftops, casting golden light on wet pavement. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. A deep breath. She had made a choice the night before, a choice to help without expectation. That choice, seemingly small, had opened a door she had never imagined. Footsteps echoed in the distance. The bell jingled again, and Gregory Hayes entered. He looked different in the daylight. Not just the suit, not just the polished shoes, but something in his posture, his eyes. He carried the weight of a man used to being in control, yet there was humility in the way he looked at her. Beatrice, he said simply, thank you for last night. I've never met anyone like you. Beatrice forced a small smile. It was the right thing to do. Gregory stepped closer. It was more than the right thing. It was extraordinary. And I want you to be a part of something bigger. I want to offer you a position as Director of Tailoring Services for Hayes Industries employee programs, along with a 30% equity stake, a salary, and full scholarship opportunities for your daughter, Nia, at any university she chooses. Beatrice's mouth went dry. Her thoughts raced. Her bills, her daughter, her shop. Could she take this leap? Was it real? Gregory smiled again. I know it's sudden, but integrity like yours deserves to be rewarded. You've proven that skill and heart matter more than money. Beatrice closed her eyes briefly. One deep breath. She opened them, steady. I accept, she said, her voice firm. A wave of relief and excitement washed over her. She had helped a man in need without expecting anything in return, and in turn, her life and her family's future had been changed forever. The sun fully rose, golden light spilling into the shop. Beatrice looked at her machines, her fabrics, her notes. Everything felt charged with new possibilities. She was no longer just a seamstress struggling to pay bills. She was now a guide, a mentor, a bridge between her craft and a larger world. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The next few days were a whirlwind for Beatrice. Her small shop, once quiet and solitary, began to feel alive in a way she had never imagined. Gregory Hayes's offer had opened doors, and now she had decisions to make. How to expand the shop, how to honor her mother's legacy while taking this leap. She started by reviewing the stacks of resumes sent after Hayes Industries had posted the announcement. Local tailors, some with decades of experience, some eager apprentices. She wanted a mix of skill, heart, and integrity. Each application told a story. One applicant, Marcus, had been helping his grandmother mend clothes for years. Another, Latoya, had taught sewing to neighborhood kids. Beatrice smiled at each note, seeing reflections of her mother in these people. By the end of the week, she had chosen 10 tailors to join her team. Each person was welcomed warmly, the small shop buzzing with activity and chatter. She introduced them to her philosophy. Every garment has a person inside it. Respect the person. Her first morning with the new team, she walked through the shop, pointing out techniques her mother had taught her. This stitch, she said, isn't just about holding fabric together. It's about care. It's about intention. When someone wears this, they should feel dignity, even if they're just walking to a job interview. Marcus, the elder tailor, nodded thoughtfully. I've never heard it put that way. Usually we just hurry to finish orders. Rushing doesn't make a garment better, Beatrice said. Heart does. Respect does. Outside, the city moved on as usual, unaware of the transformations happening in the tiny shop. Customers trickled in, some seeking regular services, others unaware of the larger changes taking place inside. Beatrice greeted each one, offering a warm smile, careful not to let the chaos overwhelm her. Soon, she decided to launch a Saturday program, free tailoring services for job seekers, people who couldn't afford proper attire but needed it to secure work. Flyers went up, emails were sent, and word spread quickly. The first Saturday arrived. Beatrice and her team were ready. The shop doors opened, and a steady stream of people entered, young and old, nervous and hopeful. She guided her team, teaching them to measure with care, talk with compassion, and listen to the stories behind each request. One young man, Jamal, had no suit for his first interview. His hands trembled as he held the jacket Beatrice fitted him with. "Thank you," he whispered. I feel like I can do this now." "That's why we're here," Beatrice said softly. "Go show them what you're capable of." Hours passed. Jackets, skirts, blouses, and trousers were tailored, hemmed, and pressed. Each garment left the shop carrying not only fabric, but also hope, dignity, and pride. As the day wound down, Beatrice looked around at her team, exhausted but smiling. She felt the energy, the unity, the shared sense of purpose. This was more than a business expansion. It was a living legacy of her mother's kindness, amplified. But even in the satisfaction, a quiet worry lingered. Could she sustain this? Could she balance paying bills, managing a growing team, and keeping her principles intact? The challenge was immense. Yet as she folded the last suit and turned off the lights, she felt a quiet confidence. This was only the beginning, and she was ready. The following week, Beatrice woke early, the city still wrapped in a soft gray light. Her shop smelled faintly of fabric, wax, and anticipation. Word of her Saturday free services had spread fast, and people were already lining up outside before the doors even opened. The first customer, a young woman named Aaliyah, stepped in hesitantly, clutching a wrinkled blazer. Her hands shook. I have a job interview tomorrow," she whispered. "I don't have anything appropriate to wear." Beatrice knelt to look her in the eye. "We'll fix that," she said. Her team jumped into action, measuring, pinning, and cutting with careful precision. She guided them with soft corrections, her mother's lessons echoing in every word. "Remember," Beatrice said quietly, "it's not just the suit. It's the confidence it gives. Make them feel ready, not just clothed." Outside, the line grew. Young men and women, some shy, some desperate, all seeking a chance. Each brought a story, some tragic, some hopeful, all real. Beatrice listened when she could, offering words of encouragement. She realized the shop had become more than a tailoring studio. It was a sanctuary, a place where dignity could be restored, one stitch at a time. By midday, the shop was buzzing with activity. Fabric scissors clicked, pins jingled, the soft hum of sewing machines filled the air. Beatrice moved between stations, guiding hands, offering reassurance, and making sure each garment carried not only skill, but also care. One man, Thomas, arrived late. His suit jacket was badly torn, almost beyond repair. He looked desperate, ashamed. I don't know if you can help," he said quietly. Beatrice took the jacket gently. "We'll make it work," she said, smiling. "Everyone deserves a chance." Hours passed, and the last garment was finally pressed and hung neatly. Customers left, some smiling, some teary-eyed, but all carrying hope alongside their perfectly fitted clothing. As Beatrice closed the doors, she leaned against the counter, exhaustion washing over her. She glanced at her team, their hands sore but spirits high. Marcus, the elder tailor, clapped her on the shoulder. "Beatrice, this is incredible. You've turned a simple shop into something much bigger, something meaningful." She smiled faintly, her thoughts wandering to her daughter, Nia. "This is the kind of legacy I want her to see," Beatrice thought. Not just hard work, but kindness, integrity, and the ripple effects of doing the right thing. Yet, even in the satisfaction, a shadow of concern lingered. Could they sustain this? Could she balance her growing responsibilities, her bills, and the integrity she had promised to uphold? The questions were heavy, but they didn't feel impossible. Not yet. Just as she was about to leave, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Beatrice frowned. Visitors at this hour were rare. She opened it to see a man in a crisp suit, holding a folder. His eyes scanned the shop, finally resting on her. "Beatrice Johnson?" he asked. "We need to talk about Mr. Hayes's instructions and an urgent matter regarding one of your recent clients." Beatrice felt a chill. The night had brought success, hope, and purpose. But now, it seemed, a challenge was arriving at her doorstep. Beatrice closed the door behind the suited man and gestured for him to sit. He placed the folder on the counter carefully, his fingers tapping nervously. "This is about one of your Saturday clients," he began. "A young woman named Sarah. Mr. Hayes noticed an unusual discrepancy in her application documents. It seems someone may be trying to exploit her situation." Beatrice's brow furrowed. "Exploit her? How?" The man opened the folder. Inside were copies of forms Sarah had filled out for employment assistance. Some signatures seemed forged, and there were notes indicating that a so-called charity organization had been trying to funnel her into programs she hadn't applied for. Beatrice felt a surge of anger and protectiveness. She came here for help, and someone's trying to take advantage of her vulnerability? "That's correct," the man said solemnly. "Mr. Hayes believes your guidance and supervision could prevent harm. He wants your shop to be not only a tailoring hub, but a safe place where integrity is enforced and exploitation stopped before it reaches the vulnerable." Beatrice took a deep breath. She felt a familiar spark, the same determination that had guided her mother decades ago. "We'll do whatever it takes," she said. "I won't let anyone prey on those who come here seeking help." The man nodded. "Good. He's already instructed legal and security teams to monitor suspicious activity connected to your clients. But it will also require your vigilance. You know your clients, their stories, and their needs better than anyone." Beatrice glanced at her team, who had gathered quietly in the background. Marcus's eyes were sharp, ready for action. LaToya nodded with quiet resolve. Beatrice realized that this wasn't just about sewing suits anymore. Her shop had become a front line for fairness, honesty, and protection. Over the next few days, Beatrice and her team worked tirelessly. Each client intake now included careful verification. They asked more questions, observed patterns, and kept meticulous notes. The shop became organized chaos, machines humming, scissors slicing, conversations buzzing, but the purpose behind the work was clear. One afternoon, Sarah arrived again. Her hands trembled as she held a folded blouse. Beatrice greeted her warmly. "We'll take care of this," she said, guiding her to the work table. As LaToya pinned and adjusted, Beatrice leaned in. "Sarah, I need you to tell me if anyone's contacted you about programs or offers you didn't sign up for." Sarah's eyes widened. "Yes, there was someone. They said they could help me with job placement, but I had to give them personal information first. I didn't know what to do." Beatrice's jaw tightened. "You did the right thing coming here. No one takes advantage of my clients while I'm here." LaToya nodded, sewing with precision. Marcus adjusted a jacket, whispering, "She's lucky you're watching over her, Beatrice." As the day ended, Beatrice stood by the door, watching Sarah leave with a perfectly tailored blouse and renewed confidence. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the power of doing the right thing. Every stitch sewn, every client protected, was proof that one act of integrity could ripple outward, safeguarding lives in ways that weren't always visible. Yet, even in this small victory, Beatrice sensed the larger challenge looming. There were more clients, more vulnerabilities, and more people willing to exploit desperation. She had the skills, the team, and the heart. But would that be enough? The evening light filtered through the shop windows, golden and warm, but shadows lingered in the corners. Beatrice knew the next test was coming, and when it did, she would need every ounce of courage, wisdom, and resilience she possessed. The next morning, Beatrice arrived at the shop earlier than usual. The streets were still wet from overnight rain, and the faint smell of coffee and damp asphalt drifted through the air. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, her mind already racing with plans for the day. LaToya was at the sewing machine, threading a needle. Marcus was inspecting a suit jacket with a critical eye. The rest of the team bustled quietly, preparing for another busy Saturday. Then the bell above the door rang sharply. Beatrice looked up. A man she had never seen before stepped in, tall, dark-suited, his expression unreadable. He carried a briefcase, and his eyes scanned the shop as if evaluating everything and everyone. "Can I help you?" Beatrice asked, her voice calm but firm. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm here about one of your clients," he said. "A young woman named Aaliyah. It seems she's been offered assistance from an organization, but they have unusual requirements." Beatrice's stomach tightened. "Unusual requirements?" "Yes. They're asking for personal documents, proof of identity, even financial information in exchange for minimal support. It's highly irregular." Beatrice exchanged a glance with Marcus and LaToya. "We'll handle it." "No one takes advantage of my clients on my watch." The man nodded slowly. "I thought you'd say that, but you should know. This organization has connections. They're persistent, and they don't like being challenged." Beatrice's jaw set. She felt a cold determination. "Then we'll be more persistent." Over the next few hours, the team worked with renewed focus. Every client intake now included double checks and background verification. Beatrice personally spoke with each visitor, ensuring no one was being manipulated. Aaliyah returned, carrying the same wrinkled blazer from before. She looked nervous. I got a call from that organization again," she said quietly. "They said if I didn't send them my documents, they'd cancel my application." Beatrice put a hand on her shoulder. "We won't let them intimidate you. You're safe here. We'll make sure nothing happens without your knowledge." LaToya adjusted the blazer, sewing carefully. "We've got your back. Every stitch, every seam is protection as well as repair." Marcus nodded, checking measurements. "They don't know who they're dealing with." The day passed in a blur of sewing, phone calls, and careful monitoring. Each client who arrived received not only tailored clothing, but also guidance and protection. Beatrice felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, but she also felt pride in her team's dedication and skill. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the shop, the stranger from earlier returned. He placed a card on the counter and left without a word. Beatrice picked it up. It was blank except for a single note in sharp handwriting. "We will be watching." A chill ran down her spine. This was no longer just about kindness and tailoring. There were forces outside her shop, forces willing to threaten those in need. And Beatrice realized that the next steps would be the most challenging yet. She looked at her team, their faces tired but resolute. "We're not backing down," she said quietly. "No one preys on the people who come here. Not now, not ever." The shop grew quiet as the day ended, but the tension lingered. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, unaware of the battles being waged inside a small tailoring shop. Beatrice closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the fight ahead. One act of kindness had turned into a mission of protection, and she knew the next storm would test them all. The following week, tension hung in the air like humidity before a storm. Beatrice moved through her shop with purpose, yet a constant sense of vigilance clung to her. Every client who entered was now met with scrutiny, not out of mistrust, but out of necessity. Latoya was checking a blouse, whispering instructions to a younger apprentice. Marcus adjusted a hemline, his eyes darting occasionally toward the entrance. Beatrice herself oversaw every corner, noting the names, faces, and stories of everyone who came through. The bell jingled sharply. A young man, nervous and unsteady, stepped in. I need help with a suit for an interview," he said, holding a wrinkled jacket. Beatrice smiled softly. "Of course. Let's take care of it together." As Latoya worked on the jacket, Marcus and Beatrice reviewed the man's situation quietly. Papers in hand, Beatrice noticed a pattern. The young man had received calls and emails from organizations promising jobs, scholarships, and assistance, but with strings attached. Someone was deliberately exploiting the vulnerable. Beatrice's jaw tightened. "This isn't just chance. Someone is orchestrating this," she whispered to Marcus. Marcus nodded. "We need to make sure no one else falls into their trap." Hours passed, and the shop hummed with activity. Sewing machines clicked, scissors cut fabric, and soft conversations reassured clients. Each garment became a shield, each stitch a small act of protection. By late afternoon, Beatrice received a message on her phone. It was from Gregory Hayes. "Be careful. Watch the patterns. There are people pushing too hard. Protect your clients. I trust your judgment." Beatrice felt a shiver, but also resolve. "We're ready," she murmured. The day's last client, a young woman named Layla, arrived with a stack of documents and a worn dress. She looked frightened. "They said if I don't comply, I'll lose the opportunity for my new job," she whispered. Beatrice guided her to the table. "No one here is going to take advantage of you," she said firmly. "We will fix your dress and make sure you leave safe, confident, and prepared." Latoya and Marcus worked side by side, their hands steady, precise. Beatrice spoke softly to Layla, asking questions, listening, and quietly noting details that could reveal the exploiter's methods. By evening, the clients had left, each carrying a garment and a renewed sense of dignity. But Beatrice knew the real work was just beginning. The threats outside her shop were becoming clearer, more organized. Someone, or multiple people, were deliberately targeting the vulnerable. She stood at the counter, looking at her team. "We've done well today, but the challenge is growing," she said. "We need to be smarter, faster, and more vigilant. No one gets hurt under our watch." Marcus adjusted his jacket. We've got your back, Beatrice, always. Latoya nodded. Every client leaves here stronger than they came in. That's our job. Beatrice took a deep breath, gazing out the window at the fading sun. Shadows stretched across the street, and she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. One act of kindness had blossomed into a mission. One shop had become a shield, and now the storm outside was no longer just a metaphor. Someone was watching, someone was testing them, and Beatrice knew that the next steps would require every ounce of courage, skill, and heart she had. The next morning, Beatrice arrived at her shop earlier than usual. The streets were quiet, almost unnervingly so, as if the city itself held its breath. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, her eyes scanning every corner. Her team was already at work, but tension was thick. Latoya looked up from a blouse she was pressing. Beatrice, someone just called, said they'd be coming by later today about a client. They sounded threatening. Beatrice's stomach tightened. Threatening how? They didn't say much, Latoya replied. Just implied consequences if the client didn't comply with their demands. Marcus set down his scissors, frowning. That's the first time someone's been that direct. Up to now, it's been subtle. Emails, strange calls, vague threats. This is the first step closer. Beatrice nodded slowly. Then we prepare. Double-check every client's paperwork, review security measures, and stay alert. No one gets harmed while they're here. By mid-morning, a young man named Jamal arrived, holding a suit jacket that had been ripped at the seam. His hands shook. I don't know what to do, he stammered. They're saying if I don't give them money and documents, they'll report me for something I didn't do. Beatrice took a deep breath and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You're safe here, she said. We'll fix your jacket and make sure nothing happens to you. Latoya guided Jamal to a station while Marcus began inspecting his documents. Beatrice reviewed every detail carefully. The patterns were familiar, organizations pretending to help but really manipulating and threatening their clients. As the team worked on the jacket, the bell jingled. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside, eyes sharp, scanning the room. Beatrice's heart raced. She recognized the posture, the controlled confidence. It was someone testing her resolve. Beatrice Johnson? The man asked, his voice calm but edged with authority. Yes, she replied, standing tall. What brings you here? I'm here regarding Jamal, he said. You're interfering with arrangements some people have made. That's unfortunate. Beatrice felt a surge of anger. He came here for help. You don't intimidate or threaten anyone under my watch. The man's lips tightened. Watch yourself. This isn't just about clothes or goodwill anymore. People are watching, and some don't like interference. Beatrice squared her shoulders. Then they'll see that integrity can't be threatened. My clients leave here safe, confident, and protected. That's non-negotiable. The man paused, his eyes narrowing, then turned and left without another word. The tension lingered, like smoke in the air after a fire. Beatrice exhaled, looking at her team. We just had our first real warning, she said quietly. But that doesn't change anything. We protect our clients, no matter what. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. They won't catch us off guard again. Latoya added, every stitch we make, every client we help, it all counts. They can't take that away from us. Beatrice felt a mix of fear and determination. This was no longer just a shop or a mission of kindness. It was a battleground. But as she watched her team work, their focus and dedication unwavering, she knew they were ready for the challenge. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows into the shop. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the quiet storm gathering around a small tailoring shop and the woman who had turned compassion into a shield. The next Saturday arrived, brighter than the previous week, but the air felt heavier inside Beatrice's shop. Word of the free tailoring program had spread further, and more clients were expected. Beatrice felt a mixture of pride and worry. Each new visitor was an opportunity to help, but also a potential target for the people trying to manipulate the vulnerable. The first client of the day was a young woman named Nia, coincidentally Beatrice's daughter's friend. She held a suit that was fraying at the edges. I need this fixed before my interview tomorrow, she said nervously. Beatrice knelt beside her. We'll take care of it. You're safe here. While LaToya and Marcus worked on Nia's suit, the bell jingled again. A man in a business coat entered, glancing around the shop carefully. Beatrice's heart tightened. His eyes settled on a young man named Malik, who was waiting for his jacket to be hemmed. "Excuse me," the man said, walking up to Malik. "I need to see some documents from you. It's urgent." Malik stiffened. I don't have them," he stammered. Beatrice stepped forward. "You don't need to give him anything," she said firmly. "This is a safe space. No one intimidates my clients here." The man's face tightened. "I'm just doing my job," he replied coolly. "These forms are required." "No, they're not," Beatrice said. "I'll handle this. Step back." Marcus and LaToya moved closer, forming a subtle barrier. Beatrice's voice was calm but unwavering. "You may think you have authority, but you're not threatening anyone under my watch. Leave now, or I will call security and legal immediately." The man hesitated, glancing around at the focused, united team. Slowly, he straightened and left, muttering under his breath. The bell rang again, louder this time as the door shut behind him. Beatrice exhaled, feeling the tension leave the room but knowing it was only temporary. "This is the reality now," she said to her team. "We protect our clients, always, and we stay alert." The rest of the day passed in a controlled rhythm. Each client was guided through their measurements, documents checked carefully, and garments sewn with both skill and care. The shop hummed with activity, the soft sound of sewing machines mixing with quiet conversations and occasional laughter. By late afternoon, Beatrice stood at the counter, reviewing notes on clients, patterns of threats, and suspicious contacts. She realized that the shop had transformed into more than a tailoring studio. It was a hub of safety, integrity, and empowerment. As she prepared to close, Nia approached her. "Beatrice." "Thank you," she said softly. "I feel confident. I feel like I can face tomorrow." Beatrice smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You can. And remember, every stitch carries care, every decision here carries protection. You're never alone." Outside, the city continued its rhythm, unaware of the quiet battles waged within the small shop. But inside, Beatrice and her team felt the weight of responsibility and the strength of purpose, growing with each passing hour. And as the sun set, casting long golden shadows across the shop, Beatrice knew one thing. The challenges were far from over, but they were ready to meet them head-on. The following week, the shop buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Beatrice noticed that more people were arriving early, some bringing old, worn-out clothes, hoping for a chance to start fresh. The Saturday free services had become a small beacon of hope in the community. The first client, a young man named Elijah, walked in nervously, clutching a faded suit jacket. I have an interview tomorrow," he stammered. "I don't have a proper suit." Beatrice smiled warmly. "We'll make sure you're ready," she said. "Step right in." As LaToya began working on Elijah's suit, Beatrice asked him quietly about his job search. Elijah hesitated, then revealed the story of a company offering him a position, but demanding proof of credentials he didn't fully have yet. "I'm scared," he admitted softly. Beatrice nodded. "We'll fix the suit, and I'll guide you through this. You're safe here." Marcus adjusted the fit of the shoulders while Beatrice gave gentle advice, encouraging Elijah and building his confidence. Hours later, Elijah left the shop in a perfectly tailored suit, his eyes shining with newfound hope. 2 days later, Beatrice received a message from Elijah. "I got the job. They loved the suit and how confident I felt. Thank you." A warmth spread through Beatrice's chest. This was why she did it. Every stitch, every client, every moment of effort mattered. But the celebration was short-lived. The bell rang sharply that evening, and a familiar, stern-faced man entered the shop. Beatrice tensed immediately. "Beatrice Johnson," he said smoothly, placing a manila envelope on the counter. "You're interfering with people who don't like to be watched. You're creating obstacles for them." Beatrice's jaw tightened. "You mean the people trying to exploit my clients? You think I'll step aside?" The man smiled coldly. "No. But be aware. Interference has consequences." He turned and left before she could respond. The envelope remained on the counter. Inside were documents showing that someone had been tracking the shop's clients, applications, schedules, even photos. Someone was trying to gather leverage to intimidate. Beatrice gathered the papers, her hands steady, but her mind racing. "This is becoming more serious," she muttered. Marcus and Latoya joined her. "We're ready," Marcus said. "Whatever comes, we stand together." Latoya nodded. "We protect them. That's all that matters." Beatrice felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of purpose. Each success, each person helped, made the shop more than a place for sewing. It was now a fortress of dignity, a shield against exploitation, and a center for hope. As she looked around at her team, she knew they were ready. But outside, unseen, the pressure was mounting, and the next challenge would test every ounce of their skill, courage, and integrity. A few days later, the tension outside the shop escalated. Beatrice felt it immediately as she stepped through the door that morning. There was a subtle unease in the air, a sense that someone had been watching closer than before. Latoya was threading a needle, her movements precise but slow, almost deliberate. Marcus adjusted the hem on a client's jacket, eyes flicking repeatedly toward the entrance. Beatrice felt her chest tighten. The first client, a young woman named Tasha, came in carrying a wrinkled blazer. I need this for an interview tomorrow," she said quietly, her voice trembling. Beatrice smiled softly, trying to ease the tension. "We'll take care of it," she said. "You're safe here." As Latoya began sewing, Marcus reviewed Tasha's documents, noting a strange series of emails from a supposed charity offering job placement, but demanding personal information. Then, the bell rang sharply, louder than usual. Beatrice's heart raced. A man in a dark coat entered, carrying a folder and radiating controlled authority. He stopped near Tasha. "You," he said, pointing at her. "I need those documents immediately." Tasha froze, clutching her blazer. Beatrice stepped in front of her. "No one touches her documents," she said firmly. "She's under our protection." The man's eyes narrowed. "I'm only doing my job." "You're threatening a client. That's not a job," Beatrice replied, voice calm but commanding. "You leave now, or I call the authorities." Marcus and Latoya flanked her subtly, forming a silent barrier. The man hesitated, glancing at the determined faces of the team, then at the sewing machines humming steadily around him. "You think you can stop what's coming?" he asked, voice low, almost a threat. Beatrice's jaw tightened. "We don't threaten people. We protect them. You leave now." Finally, he turned and walked out, leaving the bell jingling sharply behind him. Beatrice exhaled, glancing at her team. "That was our first direct confrontation," she said quietly. "But it won't be the last." Tasha looked at Beatrice with wide eyes. "Thank you. I was scared," she whispered. "You're safe," Beatrice said, guiding her to the workstation. "We'll fix the blazer, and no one will bother you again." Hours passed, each client a mixture of sewing and reassurance. The shop hummed with activity, but Beatrice's mind was alert, planning, watching, anticipating. Every stitch, every word, every gesture mattered more than ever. By evening, she stood at the door, looking out at the quiet street. Shadows stretched across the pavement, and she knew the external pressure would not ease. But inside the shop, there was resilience, skill, and unwavering determination. The next step would test them all, but Beatrice had learned one thing. No matter how powerful the threat, her team and their mission were stronger. The next Monday, Beatrice arrived at the shop earlier than usual. The streets were quiet, but she felt the same tension lingering in the air. It was almost as if the city itself whispered warnings. LaToya and Marcus were already at work. LaToya arranged threads and fabrics with meticulous care, while Marcus inspected garments that had arrived overnight. Beatrice walked to the counter, her eyes scanning the entrance, expecting trouble. The first client of the day was a teenager named Kayla. She held a torn blazer, her hands shaking. "They said if I didn't send them my information, they'd report me and I'd lose my chance at the program," she said quietly. Beatrice knelt to her level. "You're safe here. We'll fix the blazer, and nothing will happen to you. No one threatens my clients." As LaToya carefully repaired the fabric, Beatrice examined the correspondence Kayla had received. Patterns emerged. Emails from different organizations, all pushing for personal documents under threats. Someone was orchestrating a coordinated attempt to intimidate the vulnerable. The shop bell jingled sharply. Beatrice's head snapped up. Two men had entered, casually blending with the clients but with the air of predators. Their eyes scanned the room, subtly intimidating anyone who caught their gaze. Beatrice stepped forward. "You don't belong here," she said, her voice calm but firm. One of the men smiled, cold and calculated. "We're just here for the paperwork. Nothing more." Beatrice's jaw tightened. "No one here gives you anything. Leave." Marcus subtly moved closer, positioning himself between the men and the clients. LaToya continued her sewing, every stitch a silent assertion of safety. The men lingered for a moment, assessing the shop, the people, and the determined expressions of the team. Then, as if deciding it wasn't worth the fight today, they left, glancing back one last time. Kayla exhaled shakily. I thought I was going to get in trouble." Beatrice placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're safe. Always remember that. Here, every garment is more than just clothing. It's protection, care, and dignity." The day passed in a blur of repairs, consultations, and quiet vigilance. Each client was guided not only through the technical work of tailoring, but also through reassurance and empowerment. By evening, Beatrice reviewed her notes on all the clients who had arrived that day. Patterns, threats, and suspicious contacts were becoming clearer. She realized this wasn't random. It was a campaign, calculated and persistent. Still, as she looked at her team, focused and resolute, she knew they were ready. The shop had become more than a place for sewing. It was a fortress, a shield, and a source of hope. And no matter how sophisticated the threats, Beatrice and her team were prepared to defend every client who walked through their doors. It was late Tuesday afternoon, and the sun slanted through the shop windows, casting long golden shadows across the worn wooden floors. Beatrice moved between her team and the clients with quiet efficiency, but the tension in her chest had not eased. Something felt different today, heavier, more deliberate. The first client, a young man named Darius, came in clutching a suit that had clearly seen better days. His hands shook as he handed it to Beatrice. I don't know if it can be fixed in time for tomorrow," he murmured. Beatrice smiled gently, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "We'll make it work," she said, "and you're safe here. No one threatens anyone in this shop." LaToya began inspecting the jacket, carefully noting the tears and worn seams. Marcus moved behind Darius, subtly positioning himself to observe anyone entering the shop. The day had started like any other, but Beatrice could sense eyes on the windows, shadows lingering too long on the street. Around mid-morning, the bell rang sharply, a harsh interruption to the rhythm of sewing machines and quiet conversations. A man in a tailored suit entered, carrying a leather briefcase. His gaze swept the room, calculating, as if measuring every movement. "Beatrice Johnson," he said, voice low and steady. "I need to speak with Darius." Beatrice stepped forward. "No, he doesn't owe you anything. He's here for help, and he leaves when we're done. You may not approach him." The man's lips curved slightly, a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just checking some details. It's routine. But you should know, the people I represent don't like interference." Beatrice's jaw tightened, her heart pounding but her stance unwavering. "Interference? You call protecting vulnerable people interference? Step out, or I call the authorities immediately." Marcus subtly moved closer to the client, his presence a silent warning. LaToya kept her eyes on her stitching, calm, precise, unflinching. The man hesitated, scanning the shop, noting the determination etched into the team's faces. Finally, with a faint shrug, he placed a small envelope on the counter and left without another word. The bell rang sharply as the door closed behind him. Beatrice opened the envelope cautiously. Inside were documents, applications, contracts, even photos of Darius and other clients, clearly compiled to intimidate. Someone had gone to great lengths to track them, to gather leverage. Darius trembled beside her. I didn't know they could." Beatrice held his hands gently. "They can't touch you here. Not while I'm standing. Not while my team is here. You're safe, and we'll make sure of it." The rest of the day was a careful balance of reassurance, sewing, and quiet vigilance. Every client became a priority, every garment a symbol of protection and dignity. Beatrice meticulously recorded details of suspicious interactions, mapping patterns, trying to anticipate the next move of those who sought to manipulate or intimidate. As evening fell, casting shadows through the shop, Beatrice stood by the window, watching the street. The city seemed calm, unaware of the quiet storm gathering outside her doors. But inside, the shop had become more than a place for sewing. It was a fortress, a sanctuary, a place where courage and kindness intertwined to protect the vulnerable. She turned to her team. "Tomorrow we face them again, and we'll be ready." Marcus nodded, determination etched into his features. "We'll be ready for anything." LaToya added quietly but firmly. "Every stitch we sew, every client we protect, that's our strength. Nothing can take that away." Beatrice took a deep breath, letting the weight of responsibility settle around her. The challenges ahead were real, but so was the team she trusted. And for the first time, she felt the quiet power of knowing that, no matter how organized or ruthless the opposition, they would never break the sanctuary they had built. The next morning, Beatrice arrived at the shop before dawn. The streets were quiet, but an uneasy feeling settled in her chest. Something had changed. The threats were no longer distant. They were beginning to move closer. As she unlocked the door, Marcus and LaToya were already prepping the workstations. "Morning," Beatrice said softly. "Something feels different today. Stay alert." Their first client, a young woman named Ayana, walked in holding a torn skirt and a blouse. Her hands shook as she explained, I was followed yesterday. They said if I didn't comply, there would be consequences." Beatrice's heart tightened. "You're safe here. No one threatens you in this shop. We'll fix your clothes and make sure nothing happens to you." As LaToya began sewing, Beatrice examined Ayana's documents and notes. Patterns were emerging. Multiple clients had received warnings, subtle threats, and surveillance attempts. Someone was orchestrating this, carefully targeting vulnerable individuals who sought help. Around mid-morning, the bell rang sharply. A man in a dark coat entered, holding a folder and radiating authority. His eyes locked on Ayanna, and her hands gripped her bag tightly. "You," he said coldly, "you need to hand over these documents immediately." Beatrice stepped in front of Ayanna. "No, you're not touching her. This is a safe space." The man's lips curled into a smirk. "You can't stop everything, Beatrice. You think your little shop protects them? Watch and learn." He left the folder on the counter, the bell ringing sharply as he exited. Beatrice opened it carefully. Inside were photos, personal details, and notes about Ayanna's schedule. The threat was clear. Someone was monitoring her closely. Beatrice turned to Marcus and Latoya. "This isn't just intimidation anymore. They're planning something. We need to protect every client, every step they take outside this shop." Marcus clenched his fists. "We need surveillance, maps, anything to anticipate their moves." Latoya nodded. "We can track patterns, note suspicious people, and plan routes. Nothing gets past us." Hours passed, sewing machines humming steadily, clients reassured, and every stitch carrying both craftsmanship and protection. Beatrice felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, but also the quiet power of knowing they were prepared. As evening fell, Beatrice looked out the window, the city bathed in fading light. The challenges outside were real and growing, but inside, her shop had become more than a tailoring studio. It was a fortress of safety, integrity, and hope. And Beatrice knew that tomorrow, the real test would come. One of their clients would face danger outside the walls, and the team would need to act decisively to protect them. The next morning, the streets around Beatrice's shop were unusually quiet. She had arrived early, already reviewing notes on suspicious activity and client schedules. Something told her that today would be different. Her first client, a young man named Jamal, arrived carrying a worn suit and a small briefcase. "I have an interview downtown," he said nervously. I hope I make it on time." Beatrice smiled gently. "We'll make sure your suit is perfect, and we'll guide you so you stay safe. You're not alone." As Latoya and Marcus worked, Beatrice noticed a shadow moving across the street outside. A black SUV was parked a little too long, its windows tinted. Her heart tightened. She whispered to Marcus, "Watch that vehicle. Something isn't right." Minutes later, Jamal left the shop carrying his freshly tailored suit. As he walked toward the street, the SUV's door opened and two men stepped out, their eyes locked on him. Beatrice sprang into action. "Jamal, stop!" she shouted. He froze, and she ran to the door, Marcus close behind her. The men had started moving toward Jamal, quick but cautious. "Stay behind me," Beatrice commanded. Latoya grabbed her phone, dialing for backup and sending alerts to trusted contacts in the area. Beatrice stepped in front of Jamal. "You will not touch him," she said, her voice carrying over the street. The men hesitated, scanning the determined team. Marcus moved forward, his stance firm, signaling that they weren't alone and weren't afraid. Finally, one of the men muttered, "This isn't over," and they retreated to the SUV. The engine roared as it sped away. Beatrice hugged Jamal tightly. "You're safe, but we have to stay vigilant. They're watching." Back inside the shop, Latoya and Marcus exchanged serious looks. "This is escalating," Marcus said quietly. "They're not just gathering information, they're testing boundaries, seeing how far they can go." Beatrice nodded, her mind racing. "We need stricter protocols, routes for clients, and constant updates. No one leaves the shop unprotected until we know it's safe." Hours passed with careful tailoring, protective guidance, and planning. Every stitch, every adjustment, every word of reassurance carried weight. The shop was no longer just a place to fix clothes. It was a shield, a strategy center, and a sanctuary. As night fell, Beatrice stood by the window, watching the darkened streets. She felt the pressure mounting but also the resolve of her team. Whatever came next, they would be ready. And deep down, she knew. The real challenge wasn't just tailoring suits, it was protecting lives. The next day began with an uneasy calm. Beatrice moved through the shop, checking every workstation, every thread, every detail. The quiet streets outside felt too calm, like a warning. The first client, a young woman named Layla, came in carrying a wrinkled blazer. Her hands trembled as she spoke. I think someone followed me from home. They've been asking questions about my schedule." Beatrice knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here. No one in this shop can touch you. We'll protect you every step of the way." LaToya began repairing the blazer, and Marcus scanned the streets through the front window, his jaw tight. Every movement outside the shop felt like a shadow creeping closer. Mid-morning, the bell jingled sharply. A man in a dark coat entered, carrying a clipboard. His eyes scanned the shop, lingering too long on Layla. "You," he said, pointing at her. "I need your documents. Now." Beatrice stepped forward without hesitation. "No, you're not touching anything. Leave, or I call the authorities immediately." The man's expression hardened, and he muttered under his breath. "This isn't the last time we meet." He turned and left, the bell ringing sharply as the door closed. Beatrice exhaled, glancing at her team. "They're escalating," she said. "This is more than intimidation now." Hours passed in a blur of sewing, measurement checks, and quiet reassurances. Each client was guided through their work while Beatrice documented patterns, noting the repeated presence of suspicious individuals in the neighborhood. Later that afternoon, Beatrice received a call from a client who had left earlier. His voice was panicked. "Beatrice, they're outside my home. I don't know what to do." Her heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Stay inside. Lock your doors. Don't respond. I'm coming with Marcus and LaToya immediately." Within minutes, Beatrice and her team arrived. From the safety of their car, they saw two men pacing near the client's door. Beatrice's mind raced. "We can't confront them directly. They'll escalate. We need evidence, documentation, and witnesses. Cameras, routes, backup." They stayed hidden, monitoring every movement, until the men left. Only then did they approach the client, ensuring he was unharmed. Back at the shop, Beatrice gathered her team. "This is no longer about sewing. It's about protecting people. Every client, every action, every stitch now has a responsibility attached." LaToya nodded, her hands still trembling from the day's events. "We're ready," she said quietly. Beatrice looked at Marcus. "Tomorrow, we begin proactive protection. We can't wait for them to make the next move. We have to anticipate it." The shop felt heavier than ever, the hum of sewing machines now accompanied by an undercurrent of strategy and vigilance. Outside, the city carried on, unaware of the quiet battles waged within this small sanctuary. And Beatrice knew that every client, every stitch, and every moment of courage mattered more than ever. The next morning, Beatrice arrived at the shop with a renewed sense of purpose. Today was different. It wasn't just about sewing or assisting clients. Today was about strategy, preparation, and protection. Marcus and LaToya were already at their stations, reviewing notes, planning routes, and checking equipment. Beatrice gathered them together. "We're no longer reactive. From now on, we anticipate. Cameras, routes, backup. Every client must be protected before they even step outside this door." Their first client, a young man named Andre, arrived clutching a suit jacket. He explained nervously, I have an interview across town. I think someone's been following me." Beatrice's expression hardened. "We'll make sure you get there safely. Follow our guidance and don't look back." LaToya fitted the jacket while Marcus monitored the street. Beatrice reviewed Andre's schedule, noting every location and potential risk. The shop had transformed into a command center, each sewing machine a symbol of protection, each staff member a guardian. Around mid-morning, the bell rang sharply. Two men appeared in the doorway, casually entering as if they belonged. Their eyes scanned the shop, lingering on Andre. Beatrice moved forward. "You're not touching anyone. Leave now." One of the men smirked. "You can't stop everything, not forever." Beatrice's voice was firm, unwavering. "We'll protect them every step of the way. Now leave." They hesitated, assessing the determination in the team's eyes. Then, without another word, they left. Beatrice exhaled. "This will not be the last time," she murmured. After Andre left safely, the team gathered. Marcus suggested installing temporary cameras along the street, mapping every client's route and potential danger points. LaToya began recording schedules and creating safe paths for clients traveling home. Hours passed with sewing, planning, and quiet vigilance. Each client became a case study, each garment a part of a larger strategy. The shop hummed with activity, but beneath the rhythm of the sewing machines was the heartbeat of a team preparing for every possible threat. As evening fell, Beatrice looked out the window, the fading sunlight painting long shadows across the street. She knew tomorrow would bring another test. The opposition was patient, calculated, and relentless. But so were they. Inside the shop, Beatrice felt a sense of quiet strength. The sanctuary they had built was more than a place for tailoring. It was a fortress, a shield, and a beacon of hope for those who walked through the doors. The next morning, Beatrice arrived at the shop to a sense of controlled chaos. Marcus was already scanning the streets, LaToya arranging files, and the sewing machines hummed in steady rhythm. Today, the stakes were higher. She could feel it in her bones. Their first client, a young woman named Simone, entered holding a blouse and skirt. Her voice trembled as she explained, "They've been sending messages, threats, saying I won't get the job if I leave my house." Beatrice nodded, her face calm but determined. "You're safe here. Follow our guidance and nothing will happen. We'll protect you." LaToya started on Simone's garments, while Marcus set up temporary cameras along the street, mapping every potential escape route. The team had become a well-oiled machine, precision, vigilance, and protection interwoven into every movement. Suddenly, the bell rang sharply. Two men in dark jackets entered the shop, trying to appear casual. Their eyes scanned every client, lingering on Simone and Andre, who had arrived earlier for a fitting. Beatrice stepped forward. "You're not touching anyone. Leave now, or authorities will be called immediately." One man smirked. "You think one shop can stop us? We're everywhere." Beatrice's jaw tightened. "Then we'll be everywhere too. You do not threaten our clients." The men paused, realizing the team's determination and coordination were more formidable than expected. Finally, they left, muttering under their breath, but the message was clear. The opposition was becoming bolder. Throughout the day, more clients arrived, each with stories of subtle intimidation and pressure. Beatrice coordinated, Marcus monitored the streets, and LaToya ensured every garment was prepared with care and precision. Each interaction was a lesson in resilience, each stitch a symbol of safety. By evening, Beatrice gathered her team. Today was the first time they tried simultaneous intimidation. Tomorrow, it may be worse. We need to prepare even more, anticipate multiple threats at once, and protect every client at every step. Marcus nodded. "We can handle it. We just need to stay vigilant and keep our communication clear." LaToya added, "Every client leaves here stronger than they arrived. That's our power." Beatrice looked out the window as the sun set, painting the street in warm orange light. The city seemed calm, unaware of the quiet battles waged in her shop. But inside, the sanctuary had grown stronger, fortified by courage, strategy, and unwavering determination. And she knew that whatever came next, they were ready. The next morning, the tension was palpable. Beatrice entered the shop, the quiet streets outside betraying nothing of the storm about to hit. Marcus and LaToya were already at their posts, reviewing schedules, routes, and security notes. Every step, every detail mattered today. Their first client, a young woman named Tiana, walked in clutching a dress for an important presentation. Her voice was tight. I think they're following me constantly now. I can't leave my house without fear." Beatrice placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here. We'll get you through this day, and we'll make sure no one harms you." LaToya began repairing Tiana's dress, while Marcus scanned the street, eyes sharp for any movement. Beatrice reviewed client information, noting the locations of previous threats and compiling escape plans for every potential scenario. Mid-morning, the bell rang sharply. This time, 3 men entered simultaneously. Their coordinated movements were deliberate, practiced. They had learned, adapted, and now they were testing multiple targets at once. Beatrice stepped forward, calm but firm. "You will not touch anyone. Leave now, or authorities will be called." One man smirked. "You think you can protect them all? This is bigger than one shop. You can't win." Beatrice's eyes flashed with determination. "We protect everyone, every client, every stitch, every moment. You will not intimidate or harm anyone on my watch." The men paused, calculating, but Beatrice signaled Marcus. Within seconds, hidden cameras along the street captured every movement. Their phones, silently transmitting data to trusted allies, allowed Beatrice to coordinate backup from local authorities without tipping off the intruders. The men realized they were trapped. Their bold attempt to intimidate multiple clients failed. Frustrated, they retreated, leaving the street empty and quiet once more. Beatrice turned to her team, pride and relief mingling in her chest. "They won't stop. But today, we showed that preparation, vigilance, and courage can overcome intimidation. This shop is more than a place for tailoring. It's a sanctuary, a fortress, and a beacon of hope." Tiana exhaled shakily. I can't believe it. You saved me." Beatrice smiled. "You saved yourself by trusting us. And remember, this isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving, about dignity, and about kindness in the face of fear." The day ended with quiet satisfaction. Every client had been protected, every garment repaired, and every threat documented. Beatrice knew the battles would continue, but so would her team's unwavering commitment. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the city streets, Beatrice looked out the window. The shop had weathered storms, threats, and intimidation, but it stood strong, and inside, it remained a place of safety, resilience, and hope. She turned to her team. "Tomorrow, we keep building, keep protecting, and keep sewing, not just garments, but lives." And with that, the sanctuary remained unbroken, a testament to courage, compassion, and the power of standing firm when others sought to harm.